As games continue to develop, the demand of fast-paced titles that are commonly attributed in shooter games proceeds to rise. Showing no signs of stopping, they overwhelmingly dominates the space wherein most of the player base lies. However, if we were to slow down and broaden our view, we would find hidden gems that would normally bypass the radars of many. In this video, the hidden gem that I'm describing of is a game called Evan's Remains, and if I had to describe one word about the game, it would be incredible. Before I get onto the video, I want to note that there will be spoilers ahead, and if you wish to play the game itself, I suggest you click out and finish it, and then once you're done, you can come back and watch the video. Other than that, enjoy. The story begins with the character Dysis, but under the circumstances must take on the alias of Vanille, standing next to a crash boat alongside the beach. Accompanied by a man named Nicola over a transceiver, you soon find out your objective: find a boy named Evan. Walking along the beach, you stumble upon ancient ruins in the background, as well as puzzle platforms called monoliths. In this game, there contains about 28 puzzles in total. As the story progresses, you encounter a young-looking man, whose name is Clover Emmer, sketching within a notebook which you soon discover deciphers the meaning of each monolith. Clover opens up to Dysis that he is in a quest to find a relic within the island that promises immortality so he can help cure his sister from a disease that she currently suffers from. The only problem is that his sister is also named Dysis, but due to the job's condition, she's still unable to reveal her actual name to Clover. Also, during this time, Dysis notices that her watch doesn't work, but we'll come back to this detail later. As the pair continues to solve puzzles, they encounter a third person lurking on the island named Andre. Andre tells the two that he was a lover of mysteries and was tipped off about the island's existence and its legends of an artifact. After convincing Clover and Dysis that he did not intentionally tail them, he is later released, though Dysis remains doubtful. Continuing the story, you and Clover reach the last monolith, allowing the riddle to be solved, but to Clover's disappointment, it is revealed that the whole island is the relic itself and that he must bring Dysis to the island and force her to remain there for the rest of her life. Adding on to his sorrow, he explains to Dysis that the disease his sister suffers from is hereditary and that he also bears the illness. While Clover is left to himself to cope with his discovery, Andre emerges from the shadow and unveils to Dysis that he was the one who hired her for the job of finding Evan. Realizing why she was sent to the island, she exposes her real name to Clover, which at first he doesn't take seriously but begins to reconsider as Dysis explains to him the situation. Here's when it gets convoluted. She tells him that the island is stuck in time and the moments that pass on the outside world doesn't affect them. This explains why Dysis' watch stopped working earlier in the story. Dysis continues to explain that during the time Clover spent within the island, she was growing up normally in the outside world as she apparently did not have the sickness in the first place. Overcome with the emotions of seeing his baby sister fully grown, Clover reaches to embrace her in joy that she did not suffer the same fate as him. But sadly, this story doesn't end with a happy ending. As the tension that had been built throughout the adventure seemed to have died down, and words of gratitude are exchanged, Clover unexpectedly falls to the ground and dies. Returning to a point before the main story took place, you begin to play as a man named Vincent, a character you would constantly see in Clover's flashbacks during the story. As you walk past the villagers after getting kicked out by Clover for losing in a game of Spy Master, you gloom his inevitable death. But as you continue on your path across the island, you encounter a boy who relays you a notebook, the same one used to decode the monoliths. In the newfound hope of a possibility of saving Clover and his sister, you immediately traverse to the ancient island. Heading to the island, you begin to solve the mysteries the same way you do in the main game. However, instead of translating that the island is the artifact, the puzzle reveals that there is no such object that can grant immortality. Distraught by this fact, Vincent calls on his old buddy Andre for help, which is bombshelled that they together form the name of Evan, with Vincent representing the name and Andre as the true brains. Despite having a bad history, as one took the credit of the other's work, they inevitably come to terms and begin to plot a way to save Clover. Soon after, Andre formulates a plan which requires the rearrangement of the monoliths to spell out that the island is the artifact rather than there actually being none, and to destroy the excess monoliths. Understanding that there is no way to save the siblings, he proposes that they pretend a convolute time on the island in order to make Clover follow the grand lie and believe that he saved his baby sister and himself. Although in actuality, the Dysis that was sent to the island was just a paid actress all along, tasked to help trick Clover into believing the entire plot. In the end, we see the characters pay their respects to the deceased siblings as they stand atop their silent graves. So to start off, I want to note about the characters of the game, which I believe were interesting in their own ways. Let's talk about Vincent. Vincent's character development was actually good. He was portrayed originally as a self-centered person that only cared for money and fame, and as you would soon find out, was also a coward that ran away from his responsibilities. But as he coincidentally stumbled upon Clover, he began to develop into a more caring personality that would spur him to face his past as well as to take care of others, which he never really valued for in the past. Though to be honest, I personally wasn't too emotionally invested in his backstory because it seemed that the focus was pointed more directly to Clover and Dysis, which it's not a bad thing, but it didn't give me that feeling of, wow, I really need to care for this guy that much. Nevertheless, he was still a very interesting character. Though people would probably classify him as the antagonist of the game as he trifles with ethics, his approach to the situation was what I believe to be the most empathetic path. Rather than just witnessing Clover and baby Dysis suffer a sad death within their home, he offered to make a beautiful lie that would allow Clover to be content and die peacefully. Despite having ulterior motives, since he pleasured in crafting an interesting sequence of emotions, and he honestly just wanted to enjoy his own show, his acts nevertheless allowed Clover to live happily until the end, as well as allowed us, the players, to experience a tragic yet hopeful end for Clover. Now this one is a doozy. People might be dissatisfied on how the character was made out to be an actress who lied to Clover the whole time, but we have to remember that she was told nothing of the job. Though in the story, there is a certain dialogue where Vincent asks Andre to promise that he would explain the whole situation to the fake Dysis, it can be assumed that he lied to her to make her reactions authentic, which in turn would actually make the scenes authentic until the end. I think most people like myself would have wanted the Dysis you play to be the real sister, because it would have made for a heartfelt ending. But the path the devs took instead was different than what we would have imagined, and I believe this is what makes the game and characters so compelling. While he wasn't really given an impressionable introduction, Clover was slowly eased into becoming one of my favorite characters of the game, even though there weren't really that many characters to begin with. Presented within his flashbacks, we players are given the first look of how his personality is, which is that he is a caring and down-to-earth type of guy. Despite being broken into from a stranger, he isn't quick to judge. As we can see, he instead tries to get to know Vincent's story, which he discovers is to be one that is selfish. But being the genuine guy that he is, he manages to convert Vincent's behavior and helps lead him to a more honest life. Not only that, but his quest to find a cure for his sister is one that encapsulates the loving nature of humanity. Disregarding his own safety and health for the benefit of another is a truly inspiring tale that outlines an essential component that we as a modern society currently lack. Though we shouldn't necessarily ignore our own needs, Clover reminds us that we need to do better in caring for others, which is a major reason for why I love this character. When I first decided to play the game, I didn't know what I was in for. To be honest, I thought that it was actually a story where we would try to locate the remains of a boy named Evan who was tragically killed, which would be the reason why the name was Evan's Remain, but no, I got something different out of it. and I was pretty satisfied with that outcome. If you have seen my playthrough of the game in my channel, you would notice that I abruptly ended it after the 3rd episode, and to be direct, it was because I didn't feel like playing it. It felt like a chore, and I knew at the time I would not have enjoyed the game if I continued to play it. But when I decided to finish it on my stream, by the way, if you can hit that follow on my Twitch stream, I would greatly appreciate it, I started to change my opinion about it. Even though it was dreadful to play in the beginning, because after almost like every puzzle, they would abruptly cut you with a dialogue, which kind of annoyed me at times, the story started to pick up. What we originally were tasked to do, which was to find a boy named Evan, ended up taking an unexpected turn, and I would say for the better. Revealing that the game had not much to do about Evan and more about a tragic story of a pair of siblings was very well done. Every time you progress in the game, you are given clues of information, which helps you to understand the characters more, but it also leaves you with even more questions, which can only be answered if you continue to play. I just want to add this as a side note, but the idea that the whole tale was a hoax and that Clover's quest was a facade to help him find his inner peace was, to me, a very interesting development, and for that I give the developers a round of applause for surprising me, and maybe others, in a plot that I have never seen before. Even though I am a musician, I'm not really good at describing music, but all I can say about the soundtracks of the game were that they were beautiful. I don't think there were that many soundtracks in the game, but I remember every one of them fitting in their moments. When there would be happy moments, sad moments, calming moments, and thrilling moments. The soundtracks during those times captured the way that we as players felt when it happened. And it is something that I'm really grateful for. To be honest with y'all, I have never really played pixel games since I never took that much of an interest in it, but after giving Evan's Remains a try, it was one of the best games that I found visually pleasing. As you venture along the game, you find yourself with breathtaking sceneries presented in different areas. One that I found the most well done was the flower level. Actually, when I first came to this level, I was just pacing back and forth because all the details that it had, it was so well done, it looked very nice, and I was just taking in the moment. It's also worth mentioning that the animations such as the fireflies and the flower petals that would dance across the screen allowed us to feel the game was, in a sense, alive. To add more of my input to the animations of the game, the character and puzzle animations were another thing to note. The dirt and sand that you would kick up as you land from jumping and changing the platforms of the puzzle was pretty cool to look at. Now let's go on to gameplay, because you can't review a game without talking about the gameplay. Some of the puzzles were actually challenging to solve. Now as I read from other reviews, some people complained that the puzzles were not that hard to solve. I might be an undiscovered breed of stupid, but they were hard. Sometimes I would actually find myself being stuck in a puzzle for almost half an hour, which is probably why my playtime is a bit longer than others. There was the ability to escape each puzzle if you desired, but I decided it was better for me to play the game since I found it pretty fun to solve. One complaint that I have about the gameplay is that there was too much dialogue lodged in between a lot of the puzzles, which started to mess up with my flow. After solving a puzzle and getting the excitement of solving the next one, I would be abruptly stopped to either be forced to admire the scenery or to be stuck talking to somebody else for a long time. It wasn't that big of an issue since I was also interested in the story, but it did screw with my excitement of playing the next puzzle at times. After finishing Evan's Remains, we aren't exactly left fulfilled, as we barely even know the universe of the game. We are left with questions like, who exactly are Upbring, and how are they evil? What was the ancient civilization, and why were there monoliths that ended up telling you that there was no immortality to begin with? And last of all, what is the story behind Evan? But if we were to just focus on the bond that was developed between the actress of Dysis and Clover throughout the game, which I believe was the whole point of what the devs were trying to get, we would then understand the beauty of its creation. What I once thought would be something that would be erased from memory turned out to be a game that I would cherish for as long as I can remember. Let me know what you guys think. If there's something that you don't quite agree with, or if I missed something, feel free to post it in the comment section. Also, I have a question for you guys. If you were to be put in the shoes of Vincent, would you let Clover die believing that he saved his sister, or let him face reality? Give it a thought and let me know what you would do. In the end, I appreciate it if you made it to this point, and I hope it was worth watching. Take care.